up? What's up? What's up? Happy Friday. It is the new wave of sports that is sweeping the nation where we're not just accurate, but we are spot on. It's Spot On Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Tony Monk, and I'm glad to be here with you guys on this Friday evening. We have a lot of stuff to talk about from free agency news, what's been going on with that this week, to the Max Crosby situation and the situation itself between the Las Vegas Raiders. I always keep saying Oakland, but the Las Vegas Raiders and the Baltimore Ravens. And then we're going to be talking about Bam Adebayo and that 83-point score the other day. How legit was that? But to help me bring this all in the show, I got my good friend Bordy McBoard, Andrea Richmond. My friend, what's going down? How you feeling today?
It is a beautiful day in sports, Tony, because as you know, I can always kick it with my guy. But there's some exciting things that have happened in the league, some big moves, including my boy Gino coming back to the Jets. So
Look,
happy
look,
times, Tony.
he said he's tried to write me off. I didn't write back, and apparently he might have wrote back, but he gets to start back where he started. I think that's
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah, you know what?
So,
And I always believed in Seven God, so I can't wait to talk about him and other free agents coming up in our conversation.
well, let's get into it. We got our biggest winners and losers of free agency so far. 40, obviously everything kicked off Monday. You're talking legal tampering this time, right? So the owners had the opportunity to jump on the phone or like a call, Zoom call or whatever with about five players of their choice. No agents involved to be able to discuss things with them. So it kind of gives you, we kind of go back to last year with the, Cowboys and the whole Michael Parsons situation. I'm sure Jerry would have loved to
Oh
have
yeah.
this tampering thing kind of going on where he could talk to Micah on a less of a pro bono thing and more on a hey we can actually do this. But tell me, the week, before we really get into it, what was your thoughts? Kind of going on. What moves did you like? What moves did you hate?
Yeah. Speaking about the pro bono free agency, I feel like that's ridiculous. And it's another L, unfortunately, when it comes to the NFL Player Association as a whole, because then you have tricky situations. Maybe that caused a little bit of that Max Crosby situation that, of course, we're going to talk about a little bit later when it comes to his conversations with the Raiders. And going to Baltimore and then not going to Baltimore. Then you have big moves like, of course, Kenneth Walker the third, which I think is going to be really cool going to
Chiefs.
the Chiefs. Yes, I
Chiefs.
think
They
that's
finally got a
very.
guy. They finally got a legit running back.
Oh man, I can't wait till we like delve into that. And then also, some interesting things about the Bills. I feel like the Bills are going all in, but can the Bills really go all in with the fact that they spend a lot of money on a guy like Bradley Chubb, who's a little bit declining? I don't know. But we talked about Kenneth Walker. I think that's the thing I want to focus on first, honestly, Tony.
Yeah, when we got a couple teams that we're going to bring up as far as yeah, who's a winner there and who's a big loser and all those things. But if we're talking about individual accolades, yeah, definitely the Chiefs picking up a guy like Kenneth Walker,
Mm.
and especially what he did in the whole playoffs, series. Just kind of being one of the better running backs that was around in the postseason, and obviously being the MVP of the Super Bowl, only for Seattle and his general manager to stand up during the parade and say, "Well, that was a little weird. We're not going to sign
Awkward,
him." So,
awkward,
you
so
know,
awkward.
but hey, how blessed are you to flip this from going from Sam Darnold to one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play the game and Patrick Mahomes?
Man, and it's funny too. If you look about the Chiefs and their history, obviously, the last 2 years, you do have Isaiah Pacheco in the middle of the year getting hurt with his broken leg, right? He comes back last year and he's just not the same player that we're used to seeing. And it really hurt, I feel like, the Chiefs because going all the way back to when they're dominant, having Tyreek Hill. Their Super Bowl against the 49ers, it was actually Damian Williams who I feel like should have got won that MVP versus Patrick Mahomes in that Super Bowl. He was running up and down the field. So you replace a production with him like that and production in Isaiah Pacheco in the last 2 years, not really giving you anything. You're still relying on Kareem Hunt. And then you go to a probable MVP to a couple years later going to an actual MVP and getting back your offensive coordinator who was over that really good offensive unit. And I think this is great in many ways. Obviously, you have Travis Kelce coming back, which kind of caused some concern. But when you have Kenneth Walker, he can do a lot of great things for Travis Kelce because Travis Kelce, let's be honest, that boy old, right? He probably has to rub some Bengay on his knees every time he gets out of bed. But luckily for him, when Kenneth Walker is, let's say, running up and down the field, he's going to sway a lot of these linebackers to go out their way, follow him, leaving Travis Kelce down the middle in the soft spots in the zone, allow him to operate. It's really good for these young wide receivers, too, because I feel like the Chiefs are probably going to hunt players like Mekhi Lemon in this draft. And now having somebody like a running back allows them to not target, let's say, a Jordan Love. And it really opens up their offense to go back to the Eric Bieniemy days of old, right? You don't have somebody like Tyreek Hill, but at least you have some dynamic ability, and you don't have to rely on Patrick Mahomes to be the leading scrambler of the offense, right?
And at least they don't have Tyreek Hill yet, right? Eric Bieniemy has
True.
returned to his seat of offensive power, which made him the kid on the block to have a couple of
Yeah.
years back. And let's to move on. You mentioned the Buffalo Bills, right? Their nemesis going all in. They get guys. They bring back Dawson Knox again.
Yeah.
Connor McGovern. They bring him in as a center. They paid $43 million to Bradley Chubb. Chauncey Gardner Johnson is back on his 7th team in 7 years, right? And so good safety
Yes.
though, good safety though. I mean that as a joke,
Great
good safety.
safety, but man,
And then
he's been
they,
moving.
yeah, yeah, but he moves around. He's a journeyman, and so
Yeah.
how do you think about the Buffalo Bills and what's all in for them relative to now you lost your head coach and McDermott? How much more can the Bills amass at this point, and especially with Josh Allen, that's going to get them past the AFC Championship?
Well, I look at that Bradley Chubb signing and giving a guy like that $43 million. Obviously, Bradley Chubb has had some years in Denver where he was great, and then also to the Dolphins. But unfortunately, it's slowed down in recent years. And a move like that from that GM, Brandon Beal, who is already under scrutiny, right? Was the last remaining guy from the previous administration for the Bills. He was under a lot of pressure, to be honest. And many people thought that he should have been fired. And it's because of moves like this where he allocates so much money towards a guy that's probably past his prime when it comes to rushing the passer. I know that, of course, having people on the edge, having people who rush the passer is very important in the modern NFL. If you're not going after if you're not the quarterback, if you're not protecting the quarterback, going after the quarterback is one of the most valuable things you can do. But things didn't work out with Joey Bosa. Things didn't work out with Von Miller, and they keep on trying to attack that position. And I feel like it's just like sand in their hands. It falls through the cracks. We'll see if that ends up working out for them. I do like the move of getting DJ Moore. I think that's great. DJ Moore, I feel like it's a very good.
That's a good trade. I think that's a good trade.
I think that's one of their best moves because they really needed a pass catcher, and Keon Coleman wasn't doing as much as he would like for them. So to have somebody like DJ Moore, a true number one guy, this is a draft that doesn't have like a much depth, but maybe they can get somebody in the later rounds when it comes to wide receiver. But you need somebody who's reliable with a guy like Josh Allen. It's the defense for me where I feel like you're moving on from a guy like Sean McDermott who always kept it together. I want more security from the defense, considering that you are moving on from a guy like him. He was able to make miracles out of pieces. And now that you don't have like the best personnel and you don't have a coach that held it together, Josh Allen's going to do his own thing. And now that he has DJ Moore, I think he's totally fine. It's about that defense where I have my questions with them. And it seems like they're going all in. And this isn't necessarily the free agency nor the draft that really allows a healthy ecosystem for them to feel like the most stable team. But with a good quarterback, I guess you're always in contention, right?
Let's talk about a team that is gaining a lot of stability in a short amount of time. The Las Vegas Raiders, right? They
Mhm.
potentially bought everybody, at least on day one of the
Ooh.
free agency. And, Tom Brady and Co. are mixing masterclass here that is allowing the Raiders to kind of build some things, right? Getting two
Mhm.
linebackers like Quay Walker and Kobe Dean. You go and get Jones. It's a lot of people there where we're like, hey, the Raiders are look like the Raiders of last year, right? They're just a quarterback out of it, and they still need some offensive pieces to go with Ashton Genty and co. But what do we think of the Oakland Raiders and what they're? I mean, the Las Vegas Raiders and what they're doing. I keep saying Oakland. Bordy, I need you to like give me a slap every time I say that. Seriously, but Connor Hayward, Jalen Nair, Tyler Linderbaum, Eric Stokes, like, how do
Yeah.
we? What are we saying here?
Ooh, yeah, Linderbaum, I think that's great too. They obviously need some help in the trenches, and I think that he's a reliable, for the most part, center. Naylor, Hayward, there's some good pieces here. Obviously, we'll talk a little bit about the elephant in the room, Max Crosby in that situation. The Raiders thought that they had a lot of money to spend, and they obviously went all in. You know that they are getting a quarterback in the draft in Fernando Mendoza. No secrets there. I thought that they probably should have kept someone like Gino, or should really try to see if they can get a backup quarterback in free agency because Fernando Mendoza, I feel like even with all these pieces that they got, they still really need a lot more pieces offensively to help someone like him out. But obviously, this is a team that realized that once they thought that they had more money to play with, seeing as though they traded away or tried to trade away Max Crosby, they went all in and they acquired a lot of pieces. And I like the fact that they are really trying to make a concerted effort to make a healthier environment for their rookie quarterback. We talked about this last time that we had a conversation. Fernando Mendoza, I still have my hangups with him. He needs a lot of help. So getting some help defensively is great. Now it's towards the draft to get some more offensive pieces to really help him out. It will probably be a rough first year, but it seems like the Raiders are trying to create a much healthier ecosystem than whatever the hell happened last season.
Yeah, and we can look at the constant here, right? At
Yeah.
least a majority of the players signed all have 3-year deals. That's about the
Mhm.
time frame that you think things, and if the first draft pick, and
Good
albeit
point.
something doesn't change in the next month or so, is Fernando Mendoza, you will believe by year 2 or 3 that
Hmm.
he's kind of cooking, what I'm saying, with grease at this point. And
Yeah.
all of these guys are, they may be on the back end of these contracts, but things are clicking for the team as a whole. And if we take a look at their draft picks here, the Raiders have 10 picks total. Obviously, they have the first pick in the draft. They got, round two, pick four, 36, round three, 67, round four, 102, and then again at 117. When we talk about the
Both out
direction
of the top
now, or at
three.
least in the first couple picks, yeah, where can the Las Vegas Raiders do they do? Is this all the whole offensive draft? Since we've addressed defense more so in free agency with bets, and then do we just say, yeah, let's just go and get a bunch of skill guys and plug and play?
Um, Depends. No, that's a weak answer. So I'll go ahead and say, hey, I really love for a rebuilding team to go all in on BPA, right? When you are so talent depleted as an organization, first of all, BPA is probably the general draft sense that you should get in general. You can get yourself in some dangerous territory pulling up guys when you are of need and just choosing anyone. But for a team that's extremely talent depleted, like the Raiders are, BPA, 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 best player available because as you talked about, you have 3-year window to really stack up players before you really see or really evaluate what you have in Fernando Mendoza. So during those first 3 years, you need as many good pieces around him as possible. And this is a weaker draft, right? There's no like one position where you're going to have a lot of depth in, and you're going to have a lot of freedom to choose wherever. So getting as high value picks as soon as possible is probably the best method, not only for their position, but also looking at this draft class as well.
Yeah, they're in a prime spot here,
Hmm.
and it's so funny that I was in a group text a couple of days ago, and I was like, Brady not playing that loser ish anymore.
No,
There is no amount of
get
losing,
that
and I
out.
can see that's why you ship Gino out of here, right? You're
Yeah.
saying we're going to revamp this whole entire thing. We've never looked at the Raiders like this, and if we could take a look back at the graph of players that they got with Stokes
Hmm.
and all of these guys, where we can say, wow, the Raiders look very competent right now. Like
Yeah.
if they can step on the field and compete. And it's so funny. Gordy, I had a opportunity at the East and West Shrine game to sit with Dolphins tight end boy, and I'm so mad it's at the tip of my tongue. I can't think of his name.
Hmm.
He's a tight end, help me out here too. He's a tight end that came
Is it
back.
Darren Waller?
Um Darren Waller, he's gonna kill me
Hmm.
if he ever sees the show from I remember. But when I sat with Darren, he literally said that the difference between a team like Oakland, not Oakland, Jesus, Las Vegas, and
Hmm.
Seattle was just quarterback position because a
Wow.
lot of the Raiders games were lost within the fourth quarter. A lot of games in the
Yep.
NFL are won and lost in the fourth quarter. And he said
Yeah.
that the difference between them and distance between them was literally just a quarterback. Now, Fernando's a rookie, right? We're not saying he's going to come in and fill the gap up between him and Lamar and Josh Allen and Pat Mahomes and all those guys.
Right.
But if you mean to tell an NFL player, a guy that's played the game, a guy that's seen these things, says that the difference in the gap isn't that large, can these
Hmm.
guys, the amount of guys that they have, and the amount of guys they're going to get out the draft, can they close that gap up?
Yeah, and we talked about the fact that Fernando, he's not as athletically gifted and not as like revolutionary as some of these other number one picks that we've seen in these draft classes. So for you to have pieces, pieces on pieces on pieces, and great defensive pieces too, like it allows you, of course. As a quarterback, you always want offensive pieces to make your job easier, but underrated are great defenses that really propel some of these teams. You look at Jalen Hurts when he was young, right? You look at Lamar Jackson when they were young, right? Even the Bills, right? When Josh Allen was still a little bit of a spray shot when it comes to his accuracy, you still had a great defensive team in the Bills to really prop them up and put him in positions to where he can make big plays. Now, obviously, there are some ups and downs with a younger quarterback, but when you allow a player that is young to have a lot of vets to rely on, it doesn't even necessarily need to be on his side of the field. Of course, that helps. But when you have just players in general that can allow that room, that margin of error to be closed, even if Fernando makes a mistake, hopefully this defense can shore up. And looking by those pieces, hey, you talk about Brady not messing around. When's the last time we've seen a competent Raiders team? It's been forever, my friend. So glad to see this because the Raiders fans of all people are so passionate. So I can't wait until we get some actual competent fans from that fan base because man, they've been waiting.
And then wait a minute, and I think it'll be very exciting since I think they went 14-2 with
Yeah.
Derek Carr years ago, and unfortunately got to the playoffs. He breaks his finger or whatever happens to him, and then they end up losing the first round. But let's go to
Mhm.
a team that kind of has together, right, but fell apart midway through the season, and the New York Giants. A
Yeah.
whole regime change here, right? The ball is gone. Come Jim Harbaugh. Was it Jim or
Mhm.
John? Which Harbaugh
John.
they had?
John.
John
Mhm.
Harbaugh. John Harbaugh
Mhm.
from the Baltimore Ravens. And then he kind of brings some of his guys over, right?
Mhm.
And on top of that, you got your number one guy, right? You got Jackson Dart, but unfortunately, you had some injuries in the thing of an Achilles and the ACL to Malik Neighbors and Cam Scatterbo, respectively. But
Yeah.
they got some guys, and they may not be faltering anymore in the NFC East. When we look at this list of guys they got in Patrick Richard, Isaiah Hodgins, Tremaine
Mhm.
Edmonds, a really good
Ooh.
linebacker, Micah
Yeah.
McFadden, Greg Newsome, Evan Neal, he's coming back. So what are we seeing when we look at this Giants team and how much do these moves put the G men in the thick of the NFC race?
Well, the Hallbars just love their guys, don't they? Especially if you look at a guy like Patrick Ricard, the Ravens offense really relied on him, particularly in the run game. And it seemed like always, anytime their running backs were making a move, the leading block would be somebody like Pat Ricard. So it looks like John Harbaugh's taking that philosophy that he had in the Ravens and just moving it up a couple states, right? So we have the New York Ravens essentially in New York right now for the G-Men.
New York
I think
Ravens.
man, it's the same team. And if you look at who Jim acquires too, again, they like to just share pieces from each other. They're funny. They're funny guys. But either way, I think this is cool for the Giants. Obviously, you want stability because it's been a long time since a Coughlin era, right? Since they've had a really stable head coach. So John is bringing that, but he also has a clear philosophy. It seems like they're going to lean into the run, which is really good for guys like Cam Scatterboo, obviously. He loves to run, runs and hits that hole very well, and he'll have a good blocker like Pat Ricard. But I think also somebody like Jackson Dart, who has an ability to move. I feel like he doesn't get enough credit for a lot of what he did last year was running in between the tackles and extending plays. He doesn't look like Lamar Jackson out there, but he is able to get, those 5-10 yards when the defense isn't paying attention to him. That really helps, I feel, calm down his game so he's able to test the deep spots in the field. You have Isaiah Likely, and you also have Ted Johnson, who I feel like can really eat in that middle of the field and allow a little bit of relief from Cam Scatterboo. I like what they're building. Obviously, it hurts when you lose somebody like Wandale, but then you're going ahead and you're getting Neighbors back. I think there's some fun coming for the G-Men, and then you talk about Tremaine Edmonds. You're fortifying that defense. That was already, I feel, really underrated last year. It was really just closing that was a big problem for them. So hopefully,
Yeah,
because John
yeah.
Harbaugh, as you know, loves to lean on that defensive philosophy and loves to run the ball, they should be able to close games a little bit better because they sit on the rock towards the end of the game and don't keep on trying to attack, and let the game slip away from them.
So here's what we're gonna do because I want you to look at this list of the guys that they've obtained, and
Mm-hmm.
when I tell you the draft picks, because they sit at number 5 in the first round, pick 2
Mm-hmm.
at 37, pick 4 at 105. Now, in what world is this pick not with the first pick, not one of
Mm-hmm.
three guys? I'm gonna give you three names:
Okay.
Makai Lemon,
Yeah.
Parnell Tate, Jeremiah Love. I say that because your receiver had already torn his ACL in Naples, so
Yeah.
he should be back, right? But
Yeah.
the ACL is ACL. You can be back from that.
It is.
Catterwell's got an Achilles injury.
Yeah. Uh, Tate,
Do
I
you
feel
go and
like,
get?
or
Go ahead, go ahead.
no. You go, because Tate and
Yeah,
Lemon,
yeah.
they're a little
Do
similar.
you feel like they can? Yeah. Do you feel like they feel this in and go get another high-powered offense guy in like Lemon, or they go and get the best running back in Jeremiah Love?
It's interesting because you do have John Harbaugh, the John Harbaugh of it all. He loves his defense, so I wouldn't actually be surprised if they go someone like if Bain slips a little bit in the draft, or if Caleb Downs slips a little bit in the draft. But personally speaking, I love fortifying rookies. I love that, right? I love giving him talent, and I feel like Jackson Dart, one of his powers, besides running in between tackles, is testing the deep spots of the field. So you have Neighbors who did go away, and you don't have Wandale Robinson anymore, right? And he's a good
Yeah.
possession guy
Well,
who
he's gone.
can't stretch the field.
Mhm.
Yeah, he's gone to Tennessee. So for you to get another playmaker like a Tate or like a Lemon, I feel like it's something I would be all in on if I'm a G-Men fan. You want to make sure that your young quarterback has the best possible way to compete. And if you look at this division, when you have the Commanders, when you have the Cowboys, when you have the Eagles, these are all very good teams that you're constantly going to be in competition with. So I feel like going more for offense is something that's going to really work out. But the John Harbaugh of it all, where I feel like he's so married to defense that we actually might see a defensive pick right there. But I want high octane. I like the energy, and I want the two brain cells in Scatterboo and in Jackson Dart to go ahead and get some more firepower, man. Run and gun. Let's go.
That's it. That's and I think they're in the prime. Like I said, I can wholeheartedly see them going an offensive pick here just so we could
Mhm.
because again, Neighbors and Scatterbo are going to need some time to kind of work back into it.
They are.
Whether they are available at some point in training camp or more towards the beginning of the year, that's going to be what that is. But time is time needed, right? And I think guys like Makai Lemon or Cornell Tate from Ohio State, Jeremiah Love kind of coming in and being that starter guy, or you form some type of 1-2 punch between with
Mm,
power running between
that'd be
Love and
crazy.
and Scatterbo when he returns. It'd be crazy, right? And
Mhm.
that because the Giants just aren't far behind everybody else.
No.
Now they ain't gonna be Dallas. That ain't happening. But that's
I
okay.
gotta
You know
defend
what
my
I'm
team,
saying?
defend my home. His heart
That's
may be
okay. That's
five.
okay. That's okay. I'm just saying, I'm saying Dak on a 14-game win streak against these guys. But I say that to say I think the Giants, especially going back to like I think our second game played New York, and that was like a 40 burger on both sides. I was like, wow,
Mhm.
this team isn't very far away, and
No.
Philly or be it the Commanders or ourselves, Orange Jones going to keep stepping up on the field and bullying these guys because they were just a couple players away, and honestly they were healthy players away last year from being competent
Yes.
teams.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You talk about the Commanders. I just feel like Lattimore. If you were able to stay into the field a little bit longer, if your quarterback were able to stay into the field a little bit longer and didn't
Yeah,
have that
Jaden. Yep.
injury,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
They could have done some dangerous things. That's why I feel like the NFC East is always one of the most competitive divisions in football, and it's going to continue this way whether they have good teams or not. They're always competitive, but this year they are looking like they are going to have like every team is going to be good. Of course, the Eagles, Jeffrey Lurie and crew always make sure that they have a deep stacked team, and the Cowboys are consistently good. They're consistently good to great. No, hey, Tony, y'all are over
I ain't
here
say it. I ain't
doing
say it. I ain't say it. I ain't say it. You did. I ain't say
I'll
it. I
say it.
ain't say it.
I'll say it. The Cowboys are consistently good, with Dak Prescott and crew, and of course going ahead and extending my boy with the shiesty right now. I'm forgetting his name right now. My boy with the shiesty.
Pickens. Yeah.
Yeah, Pickens.
Pickens.
Get ahead and securing Pickens is great for them. Hopefully they'll be able to fortify their defense. They're also in the conversation for Max Crosby, so we'll see what they decide to do in the draft. But yeah, you want to make sure you have a striking punch with the Giants. So I feel like whatever move they have with the 5 spot, especially in a draft like this, there are only a couple options, but any of the options will make them a better team and under John Harbaugh's eyesight, his oversight. I feel like we'll be seeing some improved play, and I'm be praying for you, Tony, because that's a tough division. It's gonna be some great football
No,
games and
yeah,
some
it's
heartbreak
it's
too.
it's definitely going to be tough. I expect a lot of good football to be played. JD with the
Mhm.
Commanders learned a lot in his sophomore season. They obviously did some things. We're not going to discuss too much of the Commanders today, but they made a lot of moves defensively as well. But we got another team that shares a spotlight in New York, the Jets.
Jet,
Jets.
jet,
Jets.
jet.
Gino returns to where he first started, and he has evolved as a quarterback in a myriad of ways. He has seen Pro Bowl level play now. I think some of the
Mhm.
things that yourself, Gordy, as a New York fan, and others that say, hey, if we had the Seattle's version of Gino when he was here, we'd
Yeah,
probably be in a different place now. And there have been and no shade, my friend, a string of bad quarterbacks that have kind of came through and hadn't been able to get the job done. You even give the seat of power to Aaron Rodgers, and that doesn't work out like you want. But now
yeah,
we kind of get into this whole free agency mix, and I'm seeing, they bring back Brees Hall on the franchise tag. You get Dylan Parham, Joseph Osai, T'Vondre
Mhm.
Sweat, Demario Davis. You got Minka Fitzpatrick coming in at the safety position. They filled in some holes with a lot of veteran play, very similar to what the Las Vegas Raiders did. When we look at this list, Morty, how do you feel and what do you think?
You said no shade when it came to quarterbacks. Full shade. They were awful. It was trash. When you have Ryan Fitzpatrick be one of the best quarterbacks that we've had in the last 15 years, yes, we are in the hood, okay? Full stop. But Gino, I believe in my boy Gino. And actually, I thought that if we would have kept him during that Ryan Fitzpatrick year, he would, our viewpoint of him would have changed dramatically before he ended up going to Seattle. But now he's back in the New York Green, and this could go two ways, right? I was hoping, not gonna lie, for a little bit less confident of a quarterback, knowing the fact that Gino's up there in age, but I feel like Gino's a very good quarterback. Not like the Raiders version that we saw of him, because that team, like, according to
They were
sources
bad.
with,
They were bad across the board.
oh my
Yeah.
gosh, they didn't even know they were calling dummy plays, right? Awful. But you have a team in the Jets where I feel like we were not a couple pieces away, because there were a lot of pieces, particularly in the defense, and you're seeing a lot of those moves like Sweat, like Parham, like Minka Fitzpatrick, right? We had an interception problem, and that really hurts when your coach is a DB that you have 0 interceptions in a year. We're getting some DBs, but we're also getting some D-line pressure, which is good, right? For the quarterback position, though, it's interesting because I actually wanted somebody a little less competent. This next 27 class, they have a whole slew of quarterbacks who are coming, who are athletically gifted. Need to tune up some things when it comes to, the X's, the O's, the here and there plays, but some very talented guys who are capable. When you have somebody like Gino, and we already have offensive pieces like Brees, we have Wilson, we have A.D. Mitchell, I feel like we'll actually end up being much more competent than we were last year in terms of actually winning some games here and there. We're still in a bad division, meaning that you still have the Bills, we still have the Patriots, right? Bills went to an AFC Championship. Obviously, we do have the Patriots who went to the Super Bowl. But that being said, at the end of the day, this is a competent ecosystem. This is great for a head coach. And AG, who has had a lot of critique in the media, we will be able to win games. I'm just worried we're going to win too many games to where we're not going to have a great choice of quarterback for this next draft class, because be honest, the Jets need to worry about the future when it comes to the quarterback. But for now, I'd just be happy if Aaron Glenn gets some wins on his chest, because, man, the media is after my boy.
Oh, definitely. And he, let's be honest, Aaron wasn't in the best position last year
No.
either. I don't think I really questioned the whole Justin Fields thing. I'm gonna be honest with you.
Hmm.
I've been out on Justin Fields for a couple of years now, and honestly, before
Yeah.
he even left Chicago, I
Yeah.
pretty much figured if you weren't the guy by your third year, and there was a sizable gap, unfortunately, between his draft counterpart Trevor Lawrence at the time and him,
Yep.
and they both came out around the same time. So, but I think when I look at this team, and the news out there is that a lot of teams in the planning now for free agency, a lot of these moves are also in response to the 2027
Hmm.
NFL draft, right? You mentioned the draft class of quarterbacks coming out. When you have Dante Moore, you may have Chambers, Arch Manning is going to be on the board,
Hmm.
right? And
Selling.
and but I don't think the Jets, right? Tellers, I don't think the Jets are looking to finish within the top 5 or the top 10. But I think
Hmm.
if they have enough assets to be able to say, hey, we think our guy is there, let's go ahead and get our quarterback, then Gino is a good bridge guy to pave the way for that, just depending on if this team isn't very successful. But I expect the Jets to be very competent coming into the season now.
Yeah, and I think that's where the division actually, quote unquote, hurts us, but kind of helps us overall, right? Because when you have two teams who have been deep into the playoffs, in the Bills, in the Patriots, games always get feisty interdivision wise, but more than likely we just won't have the talent to compete with two teams who went deep into the playoffs last year. Even considering the fact that the Patriots, of course, had an easier schedule, they were still able to beat us soundly. So I feel like, and even look at the Dolphins, right? Which I'm sure we'll talk about, Malik Willis.
Yeah.
I have a lot of high hopes for him. I said a couple years ago he would be one of the best quarterbacks in that draft class. Of course, the rest of that draft class, we're not going to talk about it, but he still is one of the best guys. I feel like he's going to be a good player. So it's about making sure that Aaron Glenn is in a good place to where he doesn't lose his job, but can ultimately set himself up for a talent. Obviously, we're probably not going to pick in the top three, maybe with a lineup like this, or at least I hope not. Considering the fact we're going to have Gino, we have Brees, we have some of these offensive weapons, and a little bit better pieces when it comes to the defense. But maybe Trinidad Chambliss, right? We talked about him. He's not special in this class, in that class compared to this class, right? Because they have some athletic guys. Maybe he slides, right? Maybe Sellers decides to slide. There are a lot of different players that they could have a great offensive potential, but just slide because there's so many different pieces. You talk about arch that people are going to cover it after, that we might still be able to find ourselves in a great position to be good in the future. So I'm hopeful, but when it comes to the Jets, man, you can never be hopeful with them.
The Jets do have two first round picks, pick 2 and pick 16 respectively.
Yeah.
What are you thinking, boy? As a fan, who do you want?
I want Desmond Bain, man. I want Bain, man. I know everyone talks about the fact that he has T-Rex horns. Well, guess what? Rawr! I have a big head and little arms. Let's go, okay? I am telling you, it does not matter
Ruben
the
Bain's a
fact.
stud. He's a stud. Ruben Bain is a
Yes,
stud. I
he's
agree.
a stud. It don't matter. And too many times in draft season, we get ourselves caught up in the fact that their hand size, their arm size, their eye size. We're at the point to where we're figuring out ways we can go ahead and devalue somebody instead of really evaluating what their game is like. And ever since he was a junior, I watched a lot of Cam Ward. And of course, you know that defense when Cam Ward was playing was not very good, but that guy was consistently wrecking plays. And that was when he was a junior. Last year, he showed and continued to be one of the fortifying pieces for the Miami defense. He's still able to find ways to bull rush players, to get them off leverage, despite the fact that he doesn't have the longest arms. So, guess what? I love Jurassic Park growing up. So, bring me the T Rexes, baby. Let's
Bring in the T-Rex. Bring in the
go.
T-Rex. Yeah, a lot of good moves, Bordy. A lot of good things. And just to kind of close this out, obviously, I know you have a little bit. It sounds like you have a little bit excitement behind you. In regard to pick up for the Miami Dolphins in Malik Willis.
Mhm.
Now, I always say you got to be very careful with quarterbacks that were backups.
Yeah.
And hey, as a backup, you win the games you're supposed to win, right? But
Hmm.
when you give them a full slate of
Yes.
games in an offense and being a starter and all these stuff, I always feel like teams are often let down. Now,
Hmm.
Malik could be different. I hope he's
Hmm.
different. For the Dolphins' sake, he should be different. But
Hmm.
when we look at, that pickup itself, what is Malik going to be able to turn this thing around for Miami?
Well, I think that's a complicated issue. It's very obvious him coming out of Liberty that he needed a little time to grow out of it. He was a little small and he didn't test the middle of the field. He said himself the system that he came from in Liberty was more run and gun, wasn't as complex as the NFL is. And let's be honest, in Tennessee, they were a complete mess. Even last year, Cam Ward, one of the most gifted passers that the game is that we've seen, from a rookie quarterback. Unfortunately, he had issues really overcoming just the mess that he had, and Malik, I feel like, is less gifted than someone like him. So of course he has to overcome a lot, didn't have a lot of time. I think what helps Malik in this case is the expectation, right? Coming from a guy like Tua, in which that even with a guy like Tyreek, he wasn't able to consistently hit the downfield play. You do have that in Malik. He wasn't consistently able to have the explosive play. You do have that in Malik. But not only that, too, you have a guy in his head coach, right? Having the assistant head coach from Green Bay come ahead and be the head coach. allows him a little bit more grace in the organization as well. In terms of the system, things shouldn't be too dramatically different because you still have your OC, your assistant coach that you're used to. But then
Mhm.
you also have a little bit more buy-in from that fan base. They aren't going to be as ravenous as they were when they had all these flashy picks, but you still have A Chain, you still have Waddle, you still have some offensive pieces that can make it easy for him. The only question I have with Malik, it's a question that I had when he was coming out the draft class, the middle of the field. That's where he'll really need to shine and get his bread and butter. But at least for Malik, he's physically gifted. He has less expectation. He has a coaching staff that should believe in him. He has the time with the 3 years and the amount of money that he has in order to buy into him and let him grow. And not only that, too, he has some decent pieces. So we'll see if Waddle, Darren Waller comes back and is able to be another piece for him in the middle of the field. But hopefully, the environment should be way better than it was in the Titans.
Well, hopefully, yeah. Waller does make a return. I know he said he was excited to be able to come back if given the chance. And
Mhm.
it'll be exciting to see what Miami is going to be able to do. Tony Monk, Bordy McBoard here discussing some free agency on this Friday. Thank you so much, my friend. You know, it's always good. She's going to be still sticking around and everything too. So, Spot
Yeah.
on Sports Podcast will return in a moment.